that in the UK, every law that is made there, it's very clear. So I don't have to ask myself too many questions because when I set up a business in the UK, I know I'm validated by GDPR, which ensures my data is protected. There's a lot of laws governing your intellectual property.
You've spoken about community-led growth. Shreya, why do you think that companies need to build a community for long-term future growth rather than, simply building followers? And this is a difficult question I'm asking definitely. How can someone retain the people in the community for long term?
And since we have so many parks and art galleries and museums in London, I feel like even if I've lived here for 3 years, I still feel like a tourist. There's always a space where I haven't looked at or have like explored. So food, cuisine, traveling, spiritual things are something that I really do. But what I also do is journal, which I personally feel is essential.
Guys, today we have a special guest joining us from United Kingdom, Shreya Choudhuri, who is a founder and CEO of Build Her Labs, an esteemed organization dedicated to build ecosystems for women and startups. Shreya worked with innovative startups and frontier technologies, contributed to building more than 750,000 euros in business pipeline, delivered significant cost savings for many businesses, and also helped many businesses transform the ideas to scalable growth. Shreya, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting my invite. Welcome to Undefined Podcasts. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and thank you for the kind words. I am really glad to be here and share a lot of my own insights and struggles that I've learned along the way. So, really excited to be here.
Probably. I thought of starting today by introducing my own self because it's been quite some time I made podcast. I was so busy, my guests were busy. Anyways, Shreya, I want to start the conversation about yourself, building an ecosystem for women in technology and startups, the Build Her Labs, I should say.
Yeah.
What kind of ecosystem is this and how does it help women in particular?
Right. So when you look at traditional entrepreneurship journey, which I personally feel it's a lot because you're wearing multiple hats and a lot of times your decision making is limited because you don't have someone to basically guide you that if this is the right step for you or not. So even before you create a product, I feel a lot of founders need reflection in terms of what they're doing and who they're doing it for, and building something in public is I feel is necessary. So if you look at Lovable or these current tools, the more you build in public, the more people understand the value proposition. So that's what Builder Labs is, where we are a venture studio where we have community powering the venture studio, which means everything that you're building is public out there. And if you need any sort of resources or mentorships, it's public out there, which means if you went to a traditional venture studio, they'll gatekeep informations. They'll introduce a lot of consulting costs, mentorship costs. But I personally feel like access to information with AI in today's world, it's easy. All you need is someone to actually validate on what you're actually looking for and what these outputs are being delivered to you. So hence, Builder Labs is a venture studio that you mentioned works with women founders, and we work with founders in different stages, and there's three layers of pathway where the community is for someone who just joined in, has a lot of things going on but doesn't know what to start and where to start, so they get peer accountability and support and validation in an early stage. And the community also has a lot of events and workshops that are very beginner friendly for educational reasons. Then we have something called sprints, which is just like a marathon. the business is also like running a marathon, but here in this case, sprint is something where you take smaller steps to reach your bigger goal, which means if you're trying to fundraise, that is your bigger goal, or if you, let's say, want 100 customers for your product, your goal might be different, but you can make it into smaller, actionable sprints, which would involve a lot of one-on-one consulting. Because the community might have a lot of people telling things what to do, but you would rather hear things that are specific to you. And that's where the mentorship and consulting on a one-on-one basis happens. So that's the second aspect of Builder Labs. And the third thing, that once people get ready, they get onboarded to the residency program, which includes everything, right from co-working to events to consulting to also housing. Because if you look at the US, there's this concept called Hacker House, where Mark Zuckerberg and all these other people, they built things in their garage and they were living together. Whereas in the UK, there is not too many hacker houses present. So we thought, would it make sense if founders all live together rather than living separate and going back and forth on a call like this? And most women we met, they said that they would like to come to the residency, but they have kids, they have other obligations. So this residency program makes sure that not only their business is taken care of, but also their families. So this is where holistically at every stage we help people via the community sprints and the residency program.
Wow, remarkable, remarkable layers and remarkable explanation. Thank you so much for sharing that. And talking about the residency program, it's based in London, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But we do also do hybrid because a lot of our members are from other cities,
Okay.
like Manchester and Bristol and other countries as well. So we did keep, like, most of the events are taking place in London physically, but we are also recording them in hybrid regions so that even if someone from India wants to join, they can, but it will be on a virtual screen rather than in person for them.
Yes, yes. And I have to give the compliments for the name you chose, Build Her Lab. It's really, really creative. And it's wonderful explanation. Thank you so much. So you have very good experience with startups of UK and the entire system. So if what is the biggest advantage for the entrepreneurs if they wanted to start a company in United Kingdom comparing to other places in the globe?
Yeah. So I would say the sense of access to the tools and infrastructure. I feel there's a lot of structure that the UK has where the US and Indian and other markets, they tend to do things very quickly, but there's no real, like, rules and structure. And I personally feel that in the UK, every law that is made there, it's very clear. So I don't have to ask myself too many questions, because when I set up a business in the UK, I know I'm validated by GDPR, which ensures my data is protected. There's a lot of laws governing your intellectual property, where I feel like when you're trying to trademark or create your own business, you need to know if you have all the means to protect your intellectual property. Because let's say right now you're a company that's growing on a smaller level, but maybe in 15 years, 20 years down the line, there will be competitors that will try to replicate your product or will try to create their own versions of your product. So I personally feel that UK has better laws and it's very publicly accessible. And hence, that was my choice to do a business here in the UK, even though the cost is expensive.
Yeah.
So if costs are a critical factor, I would recommend that you can do something small in whichever country you're in. But you do need to look at the legal jurisdiction, because that's going to change a lot of your factors. And even in terms of banking and the tech access, London is one of the, like, financial hubs in the world. So it becomes easier for me to talk to someone in America or in Australia than somewhere else. So there's a lot of, I would say, factors, but the main factor would be the legal jurisdiction that UK has.
Okay. So talking about the transformation happening around the world because of artificial intelligence. And I wanted to ask you that what is one AI tool that you use every day? And also talking about let it be any ecosystem, we definitely need to have our presence in social media. So I would also ask you this question: what is one social media that you will not be able to live without?
So social media, I would say LinkedIn, because whenever I open LinkedIn, I always see a lot of similar kind of patterns where my LinkedIn is full of entrepreneurship, funding, and VCs. So
Yes.
it gives me a lot of insights on what people are thinking beyond just me and the ecosystem. So LinkedIn is definitely really useful for me from market research perspective, and that's something I check every single morning.
Okay.
Um, but apart from that, there is this tool that I use called Granola,
Okay.
which records every meeting note. So if you have a call with your team or you're speaking to a potential partner and investor and you are making notes, but you don't know what actions you need to do or what is the follow-up that you need to send, I feel like Granola has been my assistant in
Okay.
that, where I usually know what am I speaking to. So it gives me a context that, hey, this is the follow-up you need to send to that person. And it has made my efficiency much more better, because earlier I would used to manually follow up and schedule things. But with Granola and its meeting notes purposes, I feel like it has eased up my life a lot. And the second thing that I also use is Calendly, which
Okay.
is a calendar that you use to book meetings. So Calendly, Granola would be the two AI tools that I use every single day, and LinkedIn would be the social media one.
So let's talk about your background for a moment. You're born in India, then to do your masters, you moved to England, and then you worked in India and England. You worked in many big companies before you became the CEO of Build Her Labs. I
Yeah.
also think that you're very fond of traveling from all the things we observed and talking about your personal interests apart from business. What are the things you wish to explore?
So that's a really good question. So, coming from India and having traveled across, this one thing that always makes me curious is the spiritual aspect,
Okay.
wherein I am a Hindu. And when I was in England, I saw Christianity, I saw Buddhism, I saw a lot of different cultures coexisting,
Okay.
and everywhere where I go. And when you're working with a global team that's from different countries, you get to understand the cultural nuances on how an Indian would behave versus how a Chinese would behave and solve that same problem. So, what I personally do in my free time is to make sure I am not just working, but also doing something for my spiritual self. And what that includes would be I will go to the church, which is next to my house, and see what's happening there. I will look into Buddhism places to see what's happening there in terms of meditation and chanting. And since we have so many parks and art galleries and museums in London, I feel like even if I've lived here for 3 years, I still feel like a tourist. There's always a space
Okay.
where I haven't looked at or have like explored. So food, cuisine, traveling, spiritual things are something that I really do. But what I also do is journal, which I personally feel is essential, because then you can motivate yourself and be accountable to see how much you have grown from last year to this year. So it gives me a lot of validation. I don't know if others do that or not, but I journal to make myself feel proud that, okay, last week I was in a very shitty mood. I didn't do anything, but this week I made 1% progress. And I think that 1% extra progress can only come from a journaling. So journaling would be something that I also do on a day-to-day basis.
That's really interesting, and journaling is really, really important for people, especially who have a very busy schedule. So, talking about startups again, you worked in early stage startups to big companies, high growth companies. So, when you observe the founders, what is the biggest mistakes they usually do when they are about to launch a product or be they are about to scale the brand?
So one common problem when it comes to product is trying to do everything and anything. Like as a founder, you're so ambitious that you want to include 10 features because you want everyone to have everything that's going in your mind. But that's also what makes it not worth it, because as a user, I want things to look simpler. So if you're good in one thing, make me pay my money to you to help get that one thing out of you rather than doing 10 things. Because I feel like what most founders do is when they first start, they have an idea, but then they'll start overcomplicate and add too many features. And basically forget about who they were trying to solve this for. So as long as you stick to your one value proposition, or in a lot of times there's a key word called the North Star. If you
Okay.
know what your North Star is, like what is the problem you're trying to solve with your product, if you have that specific feature, try to validate that first before you introduce anything new. So that's just one piece of advice I would say a lot of founders overskip, where they don't know what the North Star is. They don't know what their ICP is, which is ideal customer profile. So they end up creating things for different people, but not actually creating value. And if you want to retain people for long term, you need to have a very clear value proposition to a very specific target. And this is where the North Star and ICP clarity helps. And once you get a lot of feedbacks and try to pilot what you're building, then you will have real user evidence. Because the other thing that I feel founders also skip is they assume too much. They think this is gonna work, but the audience is responding to things differently. So if you're doing things, try to make sure you have feedback loops where every time you add a feature, get a feedback, do a pilot with some people, and then see how much it reciprocation you got. And that's where you'll know whether you're going into the right direction or you're trying to overcomplicate your life by doing too many things.
That is a crucial information which you gave that's going to help all the founders really. So, talking about another very important thing, you've spoken about community-led growth. Shreya, why do you think that companies need to build a community for long-term future growth rather than, simply building followers? And
Hmm.
this is a difficult question I'm asking definitely. How can someone retain the people in the community for long term?
So I'll use the case study of Lovable and all these AI tools. So, if you look at community, so let's say I'm a founder and you're a founder and we are all working together, right? So, a lot of our factors are also our factors where we could become the bottleneck. So, let's say if I die, I don't know who else is going to run Builder, right? And let's say if you die, you don't have anyone else to follow up on your product. And if you look at companies like Apple and Lovable, they have created an infrastructure where there is a lack of dependency on the founder themselves. So even if something happens to the top level person, the community has access to a lot of different aspects of that business. So they can still continue without that main person, which is the CEO in this case, being the bottleneck. And hence, when you create things in community, it's visible, and that's where you also get feedback. You get to scale things faster, because if I'm a founder and I'm doing things and I'm just gatekeeping it to myself, I could have benefited from other partnerships and other distributors. And if you look at Lovable or Notion or all these tools, what they are doing is that they are creating products, but they're also making sure that their users talk about them. So it also helps you create trust. And when you said about the referrals and how to maintain long-term relationships, I believe in today's world, the only asset you have is people,
Oh,
because technologies are going to change. There's going to be new chat GPTs, new language models coming up. There will always be new laws coming up. But the one thing that won't change is people and the behavior that people have. So
yes.
if you can create relationships with your people, the only easiest way is you create them into a WhatsApp group. So whatever you're building, you put a group, keep like-minded people together and learn and create new features and interact with them. That's going to be much more helpful than you trying to spend on marketing and finances or whatever. Because even if you invest some money for this specific technology today, 5 years down the line, that technology might be replaced. But the people that you're working with, their behavior won't change that drastically. And it's scientific that humans have very similar, I would say, patterns of how they adopt to a change and how they don't. So as long as you have the community, uh, you have a sustainable plan to know even if things go wrong. And how do you manage a community is obviously you need a community manager who looks into moderating different things happening, because a lot of moderators miss out key details that the community is asking, but nobody actually implemented them into actionable steps. So having a moderator or a community manager is helpful. because then it understands things in a much more direct way than members. And that's where the reporting also becomes easier, where the community manager could say, hey, in the last 1 month, I saw these many messages on this specific topic. What are we doing about this? So it also helps you in the long term strategy of what are the things people need and how they have been responding into the group that you have created.
Wow. Now I understand how important a community is. I also tried to build a community, and I was so enthusiastic in building and scaling the community and everything until Meta blocked me from the WhatsApp for reaching many people. So, anyways,
Hmm.
this happens all the time. So, uh, there is a famous quote by a Hollywood actress, Ginger Roberts. She said that there is nothing that a man can do that I can't do and inhales. So this is a very wonderful quote about women empowerment for every woman out there who wants to start a company, but they have a very limited budget in hand. What would be the three strategies that you would recommend for them to make a move to become an entrepreneur? And also, how should she navigate the roadblocks that is unique to women in business?
Hmm. So I think there are a few key steps that I learned from my own founder experience. One is having a clarity of what my purpose and vision is. Like in my case, I knew that I didn't want random community where people just talk and there's no action. So for me, the clarity was I need to create something that has a rhythm, that has a weekly rhythm and a catch up, and hence we have community and residency depending on how much you can commit. So that's what I would say. For first, you need to have a very clear vision on what you want to achieve. Like have a clear problem statement and have a very clear solution to that problem statement, and hence the north star and the ideal customer profile is really important. The second thing I would say is try to understand your go to market strategy. Like before you're going to launch, how you're going to launch. Are there any existing competitors that you can work with? Because if you're trying to do something in an environment and you're trying to disrupt things, you need to also work with people who have already done it,
Oh,
because that also creates a lot of trust where they might not know about you directly, but if you partner with a potential competitor or someone else, it gives you a lot of trust that okay, these guys are partnering, so they must be genuine. So that's my second thing, which is understand how you're going to distribute your GTM strategy and know who your competitors are. So have your competitor research before you pitch them. The third thing I would look into is communities itself, because there are a lot of Facebook groups, WhatsApp, Reddits. So try to look for people that are in the same boat as you, because that will also help you find a lot of useful resources and guides. And one thing I personally felt from the communities I was in is even if I didn't know what to do, at least I knew what not to do based on other people's stories. So having that community also helps. So look for communities and similar Reddit groups to make sure you have relevant people. But the fourth and most important thing, which I personally feel as a founder they should have, is understanding that not everything in this world and in this business is directly related to your emotions, which means you need to have a sense of detachment where if things are working well, great. But if things are not working well, don't take it personally, because a lot of founders, mental health equals to the success of their business. But if you look at traditional founders, most of them got rejected 100 times before they made the big thing. So I would say don't take rejection to your heart. Take it as a next opportunity. Look into it as a thing on how can I grow from this roadblock rather than treating it as a roadblock. So you need to be very careful around your own mindset, and hence if you journal things, it will allow you to be back on your mindset and not get overwhelmed with emotions and failures and whatnot.
guys, whoever wants to connect with Shreya, I'm sharing the profile of LinkedIn and Builder Labs website in the video description. You can definitely have a look at it, especially the women entrepreneurs. It's going to help you a lot. So Shreya, I'm going to, ask you a hypothetical question. I hope since you're using a lot of AI tools, definitely everybody is using now. So talking about AI tools, if you have an A, so the most advanced AI assistant working for you,
Hmm.
for your profession as well as your personal life,
Yeah.
what instruction would you feed it to follow strictly and why?
So, what I will suggest is if I had something like an agent, let's use the technical word AI agent because AI is different and AI agents are different. So, if I had to delegate something and instruct to my AI agent, the first thing I would say is prioritize on what I need to look first today and get it clear because a lot of your operational tasks, follow ups, and things that you might need are all scattered in different platforms. So if the AI can compile data from different sources, let's say your LinkedIn and your emails and WhatsApp or wherever you think you're missing out on a lot of partnerships and value creation, I would let the AI tell me and prioritize. Like for today's day, focus on following up with X, Y, and Z, book a call with X, Y, and Z, and make sure you clear this XYZ ask from your team. So that's something I would look into, which is the task prioritization. The second thing I will prompt my AI to do is I'll question it why it thought it was important. Because I don't want to trust that whatever the AI thinks is important would really be important for me. It might not be. So I'll question up and say, why do you think task number one is more important than task number two? So I'll question the AI itself to try to understand its reasoning and see if its reasoning and my reasoning are the same. And if it is, great. If not, I'll still keep proactively telling, like, hey, this is my goal for this month. So can you make sure I align with that goal, keeping today's goal in mind? So that's that. But apart from that, what else I would probably prompt is try to make it imagine as a hypothetical character. So I will say, imagine you're the CEO of Facebook, and let's say if you were not Mark Zuckerberg and you were a woman, what do you think are the challenges that I, as Mark Zuckerberg, would have faced if I was a woman? So
Fantastic.
talk AI and ask to create multiple situations to see how someone else would do and what I am doing, what is different from them, and what I should learn from them because there are entrepreneurs like Indra Nooyi, who's the CEO of PepsiCo, and she has so much to learn from. So I will also tell my Claude and ChatGPT, like imagine you're Indra Nooyi and you have the same problem like as I am. What do you think she's gonna do? Try to research her interviews, her articles, and then give me insights. So that also really helps.
Yes, that's really, really interesting. So, talking about your firm, the Builder Labs, what have you planned for the future of Builder Labs?
So, in terms of future, we do want to expand in other countries
Okay.
because I feel entrepreneurship is a global thing. You can't just restrict it to people in London. So, and coming from India, I do want to start my own entrepreneurship initiatives in India because there is a lot of Prime Minister yojanas and schemes that are
Yeah.
created for the females. So, I do want to leverage that eventually. But I would say I would take one market at a time, which is I want to capture the UK market first, perfect it to the T, and then eventually move to India and other cities and make sure we have our own ambassadors there. Because if I am leading things, I want also people to be good leaders, and having ambassadors would be one great way to create that chain effect across the globe.
Okay. Shreya, it's an absolute pleasure being in conversation with you. One thing is very clear from the conversation is that if we want to get really successful with the brand, we must ensure that the brand must actually solve a real life problem. And building meaningful relationships, courage to just step forward to explore new ideas, all these things are definitely going to help scale business. From the entire Vinz Media team, from our entire India, we wish you all luck for the success of Build Her Labs. It's a great initiative helping women empower and build their own career, and this is such a great thing what you are doing. Thank you so much for being here. Good evening.
Thank you so much. It was great having a talk with you today.